I'm George. I'm from MovieWeb, and it's really great to talk to you two about this film.
And you're IRO.
I am. I exist in the real world. So I want to ask you, Milla, first, you've been in a lot of high concept worlds and universes, obviously. First time in a George R.R. Martin one. What was sort of stood out to you about that? And if you can do more, if he was going to expand, what would you love to explore about it?
For me, it was the heart of the short story that hit me, was these two very lonely people that found a connection together. But, there's so many questions that I still have about Grey Alice, and she is this mythological creature, and I've been reading mythology since I was a kid. I've always been a fan of fantasy series and stuff, so for me, there's so many questions to, like, the world. Where does she come from? What is her history? We tried to make up things in our own head to kind of, so that on the day I could understand where I was coming from, but at the same time, I felt like if you're a mythological creature and you've lived like thousands of lifetimes, maybe you yourself would become confused and forget where and how you got here, and how almost like debilitating that would be, and scary for somebody who's so powerful, and that gives it a vulnerability that I think is so important, because that's what resonates with us.
Yeah, did you, Paul, I want to hear you kind of chime in on this. Did you work together, you sort of reference that, collaborate together, and maybe with him too, on answering some of these bigger questions, like where the edges of this world are and this character?
Well, I think what was interesting was, because it started as a short story, we had to build it out into a full-length feature. And we did that. We consulted with George. We would always give him the drafts of the script to see if he approved. But I think, Milla was you were the one who was really pushing the character out there and kind of asking the questions about who she was, so that Milla could understand enough to play her, but not so we understood too much, because I think it's one of the important things is there is that mystery about characters like that.
Well, yeah. It's mythology, it's fantasy, and it's magical creatures who are never truly understood by man.
And it drives our interest forward because we don't know in the audience.
Yes, it's bigger than us.
Yeah.
It's some of the most unanswerable questions in mankind's history.
That's right. And the funny thing about developing movies is quite often studios, they want answers. They want to know, but why? And sometimes you can't answer those questions, And that's what can make movies really great, is when they leave you with questions afterwards. And you go, I loved it. It was a great experience. But what about this? What about that? What was her real agenda? And that keeps the movie alive in people's minds.
I also want to ask you guys both, any interest or chance of Resident Evil return, like going back into that world and universe, or do you guys have a desire to do that or an interest in different ways?
We don't own the rights to Resident Evil.
Sure.
So, that's gone in its own different space,
Do you feel there's more to explore that you would be interested in?
I think there's always more to explore. I mean, every world is interesting and has so many nooks and crannies that, we didn't look into that someone else might look into. I mean, I think it's wonderful to continue the story. Yeah. It's a great story with a lot of fans.
Yeah, and I think at the point where we left the franchise, that was the right point, because it allowed us to go on and do other things. But would we want to revisit that? It's a character that I know Milla loves, and it's a franchise I love, and we spent a lot of our lives working on it. So of course you never say never.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys both so much for doing this. Really enjoyed the film. It was nice to see you in person. Human to human.
IRL!
Well, yeah, we are IRLs as well.
Right.